Hello everyone, and welcome to the introduction of me doing a traditional quilt. I can't actually believe I'm back to doing a quilt, but this is what I'm doing, the embroidery flower quilt. Now, I actually bought this as a kit, which I have never ever bought a quilt kit before. I hardly ever buy new fabric, but I saw this at Sewing for Pleasure, and it's nearly 2 years ago now. It was March 2024. I saw it hanging up on the Tilda stand, and I just thought it was absolutely gorgeous. And although I wasn't going to buy it, my sister and my friend who were there with me persuaded me that I should buy it because I actually thought I could make it for someone else. Well, since I bought it and brought it home, it's just languished in the projects waiting to be done. It was one of the Choose My projects that I did a video of in, was it June or July this year? I think it might have been June. I can't remember now. Anyway, it was one of the projects out of Choose My projects. So the project that won Choose My project was actually the Yell cardigan, and as you can see, I did finish it, and there's a little video showing me wearing it when it was sunny and in the yard. So that got finished, and normally I skip straight on to whatever came second. However, I was really enjoying doing the knitting, and what I skipped to was I made this. So I'll stand up and show you this where at the end. But this is a ranunculus top. I used two yarns out of my stash, and I've amended it at the bottom with a little bit of a crocheted edging. This has really just taken me 3 weeks to get done, and so that just flew off my needles, which leaves the embroidery flower quilt, which came in second in the vote to choose my project. Well, first things first, I need to get on and iron these fabrics out. And I know lots of people would probably iron every single one and cut every single one out, but I'm afraid I'm always just desperate to get to the sewing. And so I've picked out the fabrics that are just the ones I need for the very first square here. And I've put the rest to one side. And I'm only going to cut out the amount that I need to get myself started across whatever width I am. So when something says, like, which one's this one? This is fabric 18. It says on here it needs 46 squares. But actually, to get started, I only need one. There's only one of 18 in this first block. And so as long as I cut myself either a long strip or across the end, I'm going to have enough to get on. And that's what I'm going to do. I'll just press and cut as I go. It means that I can just get to the nice part, which is the stitching and the creating, as quickly as possible. And obviously some of them might all get cut up, or sometimes they might not. But I'll press them all anyway. Oh, sorry, I'll iron them all anyway. This is ironing, this is pressing. I'll just leave the numbers on for the while. So now I could actually cut a 6-inch strip off that, and I am just going to turn it over because I'm always a bit wonky with being a lefty, I think. I'm going to line that up just so I know it's straight. Put my 6-inch ruler on, nice and straight. Now, I don't want to cut the rest of this up at the moment. I'll keep that to, keep the other fabrics. I only actually need 4, but now that I've got my 6-inch strip, I'm going to swap to this one here, because this has got inches on, and if I just fold in half, I should be able to cut my squares accurately. I know this is now 4 layers, but I think it should be alright. Yep, and then 2. And so I'm still cutting out a few, but I just don't want to bother on cutting like hundreds out, just to get started. There we go. And then I can line those up across. And I can just move my ruler back. And I want as little waste as I can. So I might be able to put borders or something on the end. So even though that's not squares, I'll keep it. I might be able to cut little strips out of that. And I'm still getting plenty of squares. I'll probably not need to cut any up for a while. So in the end I've still cut out 24, which is a lot more than I need to get started, but I don't need to cut the whole thing out. So I'm just going to keep them with their colour ready to start. So I'm just going to do the same to all of the others. I'm just going to cut the selvages off and cut enough and keep them together. I've got all of my fabric, all of the numbers of the fabrics cut out that I need to, and I've still kept them in the number order. And I've looked at my first line, and of course I'm not going to start on the plain bit because I want to get straight into the colour. So I'm going to piece this piece up from the bottom, from this corner, and I'll piece them along and sew them together. And because I'm doing it by hand, I thought it would be easier if I had a template to actually draw on my sewing line, which would be helpful to me. And I have these templates which I've had for many years, and the last time they were used was when I did the Calm Blue Ocean quilt. And believe it or not, the last time I actually pieced a 2-inch square quilt together was when I made the quilt that ended up being my quilty coat. And at that time there was no cutting mats, no rotary cutters, nothing like that. I ironed and drew the grid out of the 2-inch squares on the back of every piece of material and cut them out with scissors. Anyway, I've got a 2-inch one here, and I've put it on, and it is exactly what I've cut out. I thought I'd make myself a template, so I'm just going to practice first by drawing around this one. You can see this template here had its corners off, which was quite nice. But really what I want is the inside edge, but this is just a piece of cardboard off a cardboard box. So I'm going to cut that out accurately. And now if I mark on a 1/4-inch seam, now I've got this flexi ruler that I would use to put curves in if I was drawing out a sewing pattern, but it is just about a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to lie that right against the edge and draw and measure. Just measure it on there, see what it's like. Well, it's actually a little bit more than a 1/4 inch, but that might suit well by the time I draw around the template. So I'm going to go with this and see what happens. So I'm going to do that on all 4 sides. So there's my square. Let me see, I'm just going to cut it out. I think that's more than a 1/4 inch, but I'm going to try it. And it's just under 1.5. When I draw around it, I'll just try one of them. I put that in the middle, as in the middle as I can, and I actually draw around it. By the time my pencil goes round the cardboard, I've got a feeling that will be just right. I've got just about 1.5 inches. So I think I'm going to go with that. That's going to be my template. I'm going to draw it onto the next one. And then I'm ready for actually starting to stitch, which is great. So I've just picked out a couple of sewing cottons. I've got this, which is actually a hand quilting cotton. That's just a Gutterman's sewing cotton, and I've got a dark one as well. And I'm actually going to start. I can hardly believe I'm starting this. I'm just going to use a couple of pins. I'm going to go right sides together. And I'm going to pin at the corners. So I'm going to put a pin through that corner. And I'm going to make sure that I'm going through the corner on the other side as well. And I'll just put my pin down the seam, just so I know I'm keeping it square. And I sort of don't need to pin this one as long as I know that I'm going in at the seam. So I'll put a little knot on the bottom. My needle's going through the corner on both sides, and I'm just going to start in from the corner and come back up at the corner. So I don't have the bulk of even having the knot. And I'm just going to sew with tiny, not going to be too minute, maybe 1/8 of an inch. Pull through, flatten out, make sure my running stitch is on the back too. And I will take a little back stitch, so I'm going to do a running back stitch, just like I've done in other hand sewing. But I can get right the way across, keeping my fabric as flat as possible. Take the pin out, go through on the corner, make sure I'm on the other corner, which I am. And actually I can finish that off, and I've done my first seam. And I'll just take a little back stitch and go through my loop twice. Pull that in, and my goodness, the quilt is started. And so I'm not going to sew through the seam allowances in any way at all, but I can actually open them up and I can finger press them. And set up again to go along with my tiny little running stitch. So I think these will just get one little back stitch in the middle somewhere, because they're only 1.5 inches to sew along. There just happens to be thousands of them, that's all. When I was looking, I thought, oh, I'll see if anybody else has been hand stitching them, and I couldn't find anybody that had. Everybody was doing it super quick. I actually did look, and I thought for a moment that I might have got the quilter's grid, which I don't have any, but I thought, oh, that would make it quick. But the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking, well, do I want it to be quick? Maybe I'm just wanting to enjoy quilting it together as a special project. When I cut the tail, I'm just going to leave a tail. I don't want it to pull through anywhere. And I'll just double check that that little square there in the middle is 1.5 inches. Oh, it's smaller. Let me just feel it. If that's smaller, I'm going to have to do something about it. It is smaller, so I'm taking too big of an allowance. I need to cut my square again. So I'm going to cut the little square out again, and this time I'll make sure it is actually an inch and a half. That's what I'm going to do. I take that out and I'll re-sew it. Now there's no point in going onwards if it's not right. Oh, no. It's not much out, but it's out enough to make a difference, and I want it to be perfect. So I'm going to get another piece of cardboard and I'm going to draw another square and cut it out again. This time I'll use the quilting ruler to make sure that I'm getting a proper right angle. I'll go down to the inch and a half, and then I'll turn it round. Why didn't I do it this way in the first place? I don't know. There's my inch and a half. That was easier than I was doing. Just shows you sometimes your brain doesn't give you the easy ways. Cut again, start again. Okay, let's double check. Well, you can see it was off, so it pays to double check and be accurate. That was enough to make a difference. I'll double check again. Inch and a half both sides. Okay, back to square one. All I need to do is slip my knot. Actually, I'll start with 2 others and I'll do them later. That'll be the easiest. Corner to corner. I'll just get started. Come up right on that corner. And off I go for the second time. But better than carrying along blindly. So just double checking. And I will keep double checking as I go. Here we go. Okay, this is the moment of truth again. I'll finger press it out. And with any luck, I've got an inch and a half in the middle. Oh my goodness, I have. That's good. So that's worked. Perfect. So really, I just need to carry on. I've got another dark one, so I'm going to change my needle. In fact, I'll have a couple of needles on the go. One with dark thread and one with light thread. So I'll show you how much I managed to get done. It might not be a huge amount this week, because by the time you actually see this video, I will be with Naomi in Paris, because I'll have gone there. I'm flying to Paris on Thursday and staying with Naomi a couple of days, and then we're going to take the train to Dijon, which I haven't been to and she hasn't been to, and so we're both going. We've got an Airbnb, and then back to Paris for a few days before I come back home. I'm really looking forward to going, because I don't see Naomi that often with her living abroad, and so it's going to be lovely. I do get a bit nervous when I'm going, because I'm not a very experienced flyer. And I do like being on a plane, it's just I'm not very experienced of all the stuff that goes on getting through the customs and getting through everything. Right, I'm going to check that. There's an inch and a half, and once I know that I've been accurate twice, I should be fine for carrying onwards. Well, it's perfectly on the inch and a half there, and so I'm happy to carry on going. I've laid all the colours out along the top of here in the right order from the pattern, and so I can just carry on picking them up and putting them onwards as I go. I have no idea how long this quilt is going to take me to do. It could be months, but it's the second of the projects that you voted for, and here I am doing it. So it's not languishing. It might languish eventually, but I've got every confidence at the minute that I'll keep doing it. Well, from humble beginnings. It's so different for me to have plain fabric. It really is. Well, my first line is completed. It didn't really take that long. And so I've got my second line laid out in the order that I need it in. So working up from the bottom. And I'm just going to start picking them up from there and sewing them down just the same. And I've changed two things. So on the dark fabrics, I'm using the pen that came with my lovely silk embroidery, and it is absolutely perfect for marking. It just marks the most beautiful line. It's fine and shows up lovely. Look at that. That's lovely. And the second thing I'm doing different is, just put that away, I'm not putting my corner pin down the line like that. So going down the drawn line there and going down the drawn line there. To sort of pull those seams together. I'm not putting the pin through like that because I felt even that wasn't being accurate enough. I'm actually just putting the pin through the corner and I'm pulling it through and I'm just holding it there so that I'm not making the fabric bend at all. So I can just have a nice straight line that I can then sew. And I feel that that's working better for me. And I mean, everybody has to do what they want. But for me, that I would say that's maybe a tip, because I think by just pushing it through like that, it's sort of a bit distorting. But I don't think they need to be together to do that first line. That's the point. I don't think I need those to be together to sew this line. I only need that corner to be together. I don't like the distortion here. So for me, it's just straight through with the pin on the corner. And I'm doing that on every single one. I've brought you back in because I've been getting on well. I've got my lengths of squares, and because I'm hand piecing together, there doesn't seem to be any point in just doing lots and lots of long lengths without sewing them together as I go. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm just sewing the next row along and then immediately sewing it on. So I thought I'd just show you how I'm dealing with the junctions. So I'm still, you can see I'm up to there. I've been using my dark thread on the dark bits, and then I swap to this pale neutral sort of a green colour for where there are light ones. And so what I'm doing is I'm using my pin to pin them together just in the same way I did when there were single ones. But I found that, maybe this is just me or not, I don't know, but I found that if I pinned straight through, I was getting some slippage that I wasn't really happy about. And so what I've ended up doing is I'm pinning diagonally through. So I put my pin in the corner there, and then I'm pinning diagonally onto the one that's diagonally across. So can you see there that I've gone through that middle bit, and that seems to keep the folds really nicely nestled together. And I don't put my pin down the line, I'm holding it straight through, and I'm holding it with my fingers there to keep it nice. And then still I am just going along the line, taking as small a stitch as I can, and then I sort of every 3 stitches or so pull through and I do a little holding back stitch. This, I must admit, this fabric is quite fraying, more than I was thinking it would be. Anyway, a little holding back stitch, pop forward. I'm on the line on the back, hopefully you can see that. And so each little square is getting a holding back stitch right in the middle really. Sometimes it gets an extra one, so there's 3 stitches picked up. And then I'm not sewing these seam lines down at all. I'm just coming along. As I get to the corner, I can put my needle right the way through onto the one I'm doing now. So I know I've got those 2 done. I'm leaving my pin at the minute. I pull that through. I'm going to come back and put a couple of little holding stitches in to make a secure joint. I take my pin out, and then I'm going to put my needle diagonally through. So diagonally right through the middle. I'm going to make sure I'm coming up on that corner. Look at all these threads. I'm not used to it. So that's gone through the diagonal corner, and then I come through to this one. So I'm not sewing those seams down at all, but I am making sure that they are nicely aligned, and before I take a stitch I move my pin to the next corner along. And I feel that the diagonal pinning is working very well indeed. And then I'm off again. And it is just perfectly on the lines both sides, which I'm very pleased about. Using the plain fabrics is a novelty to me, I have to say. A new fabric too. I'm used to just thrifted stuff. But it's coming along, and I sat last night and got the amount I've got done. So I'll show you at the end just how far I get with it. I hope you enjoyed seeing the beginning of that coming together, and here it is. This is as much as I've done. I've done 6 rows and I've got another half done. Yeah, it's coming along quite nicely. That was just an evening and a half of work I thought I could get done for this video, because I'm getting ready for going away, which is lovely. I'm very excited about, but considering I haven't been abroad since I went to see Naomi last year, I always get a bit like, have I got everything? Have I got my passport? Have I got my insurance? Have I got my car parking? Just like all of those things get me all a bit airy-fairy about stuff. But once I'm on the way, I'll be fine, because then nothing else can get changed. And I've been trying to just get up to date with lots of other things here. I will keep you up to date with the progress on that as I get more done. And talking about progress, I said I'd show you how the jumper turned out, so I'm just going to shove you back a bit and stand up. It's so dark here again today. I've got my embroidery light on and everything. I'll just angle it a bit. Anyway, here it is. This is the ranunculus top. It took me 3 weeks altogether of evening knitting to get it done, and I'm super happy. It's really stretchy. I'm really pleased that I did it in the fine 4-ply, because it's made just a lovely gauzy top over the top of my dress, which is what I was aiming for. I have kept it quite short, but I'm really enjoying the fact that when it was finished, but before I'd blocked it, I just felt as if I wanted to add something else to the hem, and so I added a little crochet edging. I'll show you. I've just gone along with chains, and then chains and trebles, and it's just made a nice little, I don't know, it's sort of understated, but it just hangs lovely, and I am super happy. I'm pleased I put the long sleeves on. I did the diagonal cuff. I'm not sure whether it was particularly necessary, but it's a nice little feature. But anyway, I'm very pleased. And when I'm in Paris, I'm going to let Naomi try it on and see if it's something she would like. And then I think I could get her one done for Christmas, because I think she'll enjoy wearing that. So not only am I pleased to have a nice new lacy top to wear over a dress, it also got 2 skeins of yarn out of my stash, which is really nice too. And I'm just eyeing up some more, thinking that I could do a short sleeve version. And I have seen them done in thicker yarns, but I actually really like the drapiness of the thin yarn on the big needles. So that's definitely been a win for me. I'm just going to say bye there, and hope that you've enjoyed seeing the start of the flower quilt. And as I said, I'll keep you up to date with how I get on. Bye for now, and thank you everyone for all the comments and support. Bye everyone, happy stitching and sewing and knitting and creating.